So welcome back, and this is People of Interest on CKUW 95.9 FM in Winnipeg. And we, as I mentioned before, we have an interview with some live guests here, and they're here to talk about one of the Fringe shows. So here we have Joel Pettigrew and Cora Matheson here to talk about Mercury Man. Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. So can you tell me a little bit about the show and about your roles in it as well?
Orson Welles is performing his last ever film role, the voice of a giant robot cartoon planet. While they're in studio, he meets a young studio intern, played by Cora Matheson, who's also his biggest fan. And then they start reminiscing about Welles' early career in film, television, and theater, and they start discussing just what it is you have to sacrifice in order to do what it is you're made to do. It's a multimedia play. We feature live radio sound effects, projected animation, and we bring silver screen black and white characters to life before your very eyes. It's a really interesting looking and feeling show. There's a lot of energy to it. It's a lot of fast-paced dialogue, a lot of fast-paced movement back and forth. No scene stays the same for very too long. It's a ball of energy, and it's a fun ride. So come check it out.
And can you talk about your role in the play as well? You're
Absolutely,
one of the stars.
Absolutely, yeah. My character's name is Georgie, and I play the intern that Joel just mentioned. I am the biggest fan of Orson Welles, and I love Georgie. She's dreamy, she's positive, her dream just takes over, and no matter what Orson tells her in the sense of, don't do this, kid, this is a tough life you're choosing, don't do it, just nothing will mask that hope and that desire she has in her. She's so passionate about film and Orson's career and following in his footsteps that she'll do anything. She will intern at this studio and clean the garbage and clean up after the stars, just so she can get one step closer to her dream. And she doesn't give up. And I think she's just a wonderful example of, any artist that has that burning desire in them, and they'll just keep going for it.
Was it easy to play Georgie?
I mean, I still want to say I'm acting, but she's so relatable. Absolutely. I think I'm going for my dream as well, and I'm passionate, and there's just so much with how Joel has written it that it's not, and that's just not me personally. I think how Joel's written it, it's things that any artist can just like grab onto and be like, oh my gosh, yes, that's me, that's what I feel. So in a way, sometimes I do feel like it's just the words pouring out of me, Cora. So in a way, it's made the actor's job easier, or just that much more relatable, for sure.
How was it a challenge to be in this play?
How was it a challenge?
Yeah.
Working with the director.
No, that's been great. Artistically, well, honestly, it has been a bit of that experience from an actor's perspective of not getting too close to your own personal. I relate a lot to Georgie, but there's a lot that I still have to make her own. She's her own person. I'm not her. So it has been a cool challenge to make sure I'm still creating a different person outside of myself, even if I relate to a lot of it. And then just that aspect of like, okay, I'm feeling what she's saying right here, but I don't want to take my own absolute personal life into that. So finding that passion but keeping that distance, and then just creating that total new bubble of energy that's different from my own, that's been a cool experience.
Joel, how did you come up with the idea for this play?
Well, it was basically a bit of Orson Welles trivia that I knew about his last performance that people, even Welles fans, may or may not know as, just kind of an anecdote. But it was something I hadn't really seen explored, so I wanted to get into that more. And it was basically the setup was too good not to get into. Here you have this guy who, at the age of 24, created what became known and is still debated to this day as the greatest movie of all time. To go from that to end up, as he would put it, shilling for toys in a big giant commercial at the end of his life. That was something I really wanted to get into, to just see, what must he have thought of his career and the crazy roller coaster journey it was. And the thing that setup really gives us is it gives us two things right off the bat. One is it lets us have this idea of the flashback where he's reflecting on his life and he's reminiscing to Georgie and telling her about the early exploits, the creation of the Mercury Theater, War of the Worlds, everything leading up to basically starting pre-production on Citizen Kane. So having that allowed us to work with the other two actors, Anthony Botello and George Worrell, and see younger Wells creating the Mercury as well. So that flashback dynamic really informed the story. But the other thing is it's a great jumping off point for any artist, and you see artists of all spades in this show. You have the older Wells, who's at the end of his life, the younger, who's just coming up, and then Georgie, who is in that similar place that Wells was when he was starting out, but now having the foreknowledge of, okay, this is what awaits you. These are all the setbacks. These are all the trials and tribulations that you are faced with if you want to go forward in this direction. So it also gave me an opportunity to get something off my chest, which I'm finding more and more, and we both found just in talking to people in their responses to the show and people in the show and other people we know, of just this idea that there are certain things in life that you're just made or meant to do, and when you're not doing them, how you just don't feel complete. That's something that's touched a lot of people, and it's a relief, quite frankly, to know it's not just me.
And have you found that have you worked with other plays in the past, and how is this different from other plays that you've been working with?
So yes, I have worked on a number of different plays, a couple for other Fringe festivals as well. I guess this is probably just the most relatable show I've ever worked on. It's contemporary for one. It's not contemporary. It's in the 80s, but in the sense of,
is it sort of like a reality play?
Yes, I think that's what I'm meaning. It's even if it wasn't, even if we're not taking it in place in 2018, it's something that will span generations because of what just Joel was talking about, that those questions that any artist will continue asking themselves no matter what year it is. And so it's probably been that most realistic play for me, I think.
Joel, how was it difficult writing about this certain subject?
Well, every story presents its own set of challenges, and for me, it was basically taking, because this started in 2009 as a 30-minute radio play as part of a radio drama series, just actors talking in front of scripts, no costumes, no animation, no special makeup, and taking that 30-minute premise of, it was basically just Wells and Georgie talking in a very, very truncated form, just hinting at these ideas, taking that and expanding that and exploring it more. And basically, it just came with a lot of having to do a lot of research, which, I mean, I write a lot of nonfiction, so that's part of the process anyway, but just delving more and more and more. And for me, it's questioning things that I assume I know. If there's a bit of information where it's like, oh yeah, I think I've heard this somewhere before, just delving into the fact of the matter and just trying to get to the core of that. And it's not so much a challenge as it is just kind of time consuming. And with this process, it was kind of, I was researching as I went along. So I would delve into the bit about War of the Worlds, and then I would research that, and then I would go and write the scene, and then I would maybe go back to where he's doing Julius Caesar, and then go look at that production more, and then flesh that out. So yeah, it was basically just a matter of time, and then just trying to shape everything and trying to get it all right. And a lot of the credit of that is to the fantastic and incredible cast And Cora, to swell your head a bit here, so I wrote this character of Georgie as trying to be very open, kind of an every person kind of thing. A lot of people can relate to, young person starting out, eyes full of dreams, hungry to get their first crack at the bat kind of thing. And I deliberately tried to make it very open so that anybody really could end up playing this character. But when Cora came in to read, it's a very rare thing I get as a playwright when I hear my words said by an actor and they're performed exactly the way I had imagined them. Cora did that from the first audition, and it's the point where I can't see anybody else playing this character now but Cora Matheson. And it just speaks to the strength of this cast. It's an incredible team across the board. This is just one example of the 4 very strong players we have who play all a main character, but also a number of ancillary characters along the way. Like, you're switching hats quite a bit, Cora, playing different roles.
Yeah, that's been a really, really fun part of the experience. Is especially in the beginning part, I'm playing like 4 different characters in the span of 5 minutes or something, and I have never really had much experience with voice work so much, voice animation work or voiceover work. I've dabbled in it here and there in just some of my own classes, but this was the first experience I've really had to actually be able to put on voices or take on different voices that are large or more animated or just completely different from my own, and that's just so much fun. And I think that's another really fun aspect from an audience perspective is we really go back and forth between different voices, different characters to keep everyone on their toes. And that's just a lot of fun being on stage every rehearsal.
So what do you hope people will walk away from your performance as Georgie?
As Georgie? I hope they really like her. I hope they see Georgie as not just a ball of passion and hope and desire, but also a strong character, as someone who does see the realities, but knows that this is what she has to do. And from that perspective, I hope maybe, wherever they are in their own life, questioning if they should go for that dream that they're thinking about or write that book they're thinking about. If Georgie just puts a little bit of a message in their system saying maybe I should do that too. Maybe this is what I'm supposed to do. And I hope she can just be a bit of an example of going after that thing you really want to do. Yeah.
What did you learn from playing Georgie for yourself?
For myself, well, to go on this question, but it also go to a little bit back about what was difficult about actually working on this show. I am fully aware of the realities of this industry and how hard it is. But actually having the character of Orson Welles laid out for me, for both me and Georgie, that's been a bit difficult as well, actually. Hearing some of the very blatant things that even a star in our eyes has had to go through and give up. So that's been another learning experience for me. I didn't know much about Orson Welles before this, so I had to do a lot of research, and so I've learned a great deal about him and his career and just his quite interesting personality. And with that, I've learned what he had to do and go through and give up, and in terms of his relationships and how, kind of didn't have a life at some points. So that was just an additional wake-up call for me to be like, holy man, that is what some people have to do to get to that level of what we see as fame.
How has it been to work with the other actors on the show? And how has your idea of your role changed because of how they've been acting?
Cool question. Yeah. Well, the other actors, like Joel said, they're just awesome. I really do agree. Everyone is just made for these parts. They just fit in so perfectly, and we're all so different. Like, all 4 of us, we're so different, which makes each of our characters just pop out. And, oh my gosh, in terms of what I've learned from them, from my own perspective as an actor, I mean, that's the most beautiful part about acting is it's all about reacting. Your job is to not it's not necessarily about what you say and give, but it's how you're reacting to someone else. And so having Rod McTaggart, who plays our Orson Welles, he's my main seat partner. He's the one that I'm always playing against. But having this figure, this stoic figure in front of me playing this stoic man say these things to me, and how Rod delivers them with such honesty and sincerity, it really does. It's made my job easy, to be honest, to feel the fear that Georgie would feel when someone's telling her, like, don't do it. And it's I've learned how to combat that, to battle against that when a character is challenging me. I've learned more ways to how to challenge back and manifest those feelings and oh yeah, I've just learned so much more about reaction and different ways to get what you want and get your message across. Even if you're not, she's awkward with her words. She doesn't always know how to say things properly. And so I've learned how to take that and channel it to still get what I want. And yeah, I've learned how to bring myself into the role thanks to these actors. I've learned how to just play against them and have fun with different voices. I've learned a ton.
So, Joel, how did you portray Orson Welles, the man, as to the artist?
Well, that's kind of the thing, because the two are very much intertwined. What we're looking at chiefly in this play is, I guess it would be the difference between the persona, or what I like to call the myth of Orson Welles, as opposed to the reality of who he is. When Georgie comes in and first meets Orson Welles, he's a hero. He's this shining paragon of filmmaking, and that's very much what colors her view of him and her view of his past, quite honestly. And that's why you see in the flashback sequences that John Houseman and Orson Welles, when he was younger, are both in black and white, because she sees the world as this black and white silver screen movie. It's romanticized in some way. But the more and more she learns about just the sacrifices he had to make and the things he had to give up, the way he had to treat people, the way he kind of was a con man and manipulated people to get what he wanted, that silver screen illusion starts to come down. So the man as the artist is someone who is suffering, striving, clawing every inch of the way to get what he wants. And the persona of Orson Welles is this big, epic Shakespearean myth, which not even he could really live up to at the end of it. I mean, again, you look at the cliff notes of his life, it could almost be told in verse as some sort of a Shakespearean tragedy, where, you go from being this dashing, handsome, silver screen, wonderkin movie director, writer, producer, who could do it all and did it all well, to being, 300 pounds at the end of his life, and having to take commercial work here and overseas, just so he could funnel some of that money into his own projects. And constantly in debt at the end of his life, was never very good with money, and just had to go through all of that. So thinking of where we've come to where we ended up, that to me is really what we're looking at. Those are the two Welleses in this piece. So
what did you learn from writing this play?
What did I learn from writing this play? Well, I mean, a lot of the details, even though there were a lot of things I knew about Welles, it's that delving deeper. A lot of things were clarified for me in terms of the timeline, or what actually happened. Because, again, talking about that myth, there's a lot of mythology around some of the events of Welles's life. War of the Worlds, well, how big of a panic actually was it? There's quite some debate about that. And so going into creating this play, I was always wondering with, how much of the myth am I presenting and how much of the reality? There is a lot of fact in this play, but sometimes if Orson Welles is telling a story, you can't really believe it, because he's going to dress it up. He's going to make himself look good. You know what I mean? Like, if something happened, it was like, oh yes, this was the biggest thing ever. This had never been done before. So you kind of have to take everything with a grain of salt. So yeah, for me, just learning how to balance that it was a new style nonfiction writing for me, because usually when I do a nonfiction piece, I try to take it and stick really, really true. I'll add in dramatic plot points here and there, but I try to get the facts as 100% as I have to. In this play, it was me learning to scale back a little bit and learning where to dress things up a little, because that was Orson Welles. That was the magician. That was the magic trick.
So this was first a radio show, which then you worked 10 years on, was it, or so?
Yeah, it was basically was presented as part of a radio drama festival. It was called Radio 10 Live. It was presented in Toronto. And basically what it was originally the idea came from, there was a setback in the production company, and in order to still produce plays with a quicker turnaround, they said, hey, we'll do it in the style of radio drama, because the actors don't need to learn their lines. The scripts are right there in front of them. We don't need a lot of bells and whistles, and we can still just create theater. Very Orson Welles in a way, now that I think about it. So yeah, that was what it was in its original form in 2009. It was essentially a very Cliff Notes version of the dialogue that Orson Welles and Georgie have. There was no John Houseman. There was no Orson Welles when he was younger. No flashbacks. Yeah, and then developing that, I mean, it was always a dream to do a bigger production about Orson Welles. That was always the desire on my part, always what I wanted to explore. And I'm just lucky and grateful that I have the opportunity to do that. There's a line in the play that's kind of a central theme of it as well. You're lucky when you get to do the thing that your business card says that you do. So I am so grateful to be bringing this talented cast and crew and this amazing looking and feeling show, coming off, near 90% what I pictured it would be, if not better than what I pictured it would be, before the Winnipeg audience. This has been a tremendous experience. I'm so excited to be presenting this.
And are you planning on taking this to other Fringe festivals or to regular theatre as well?
Yeah, so we had a preview in Hamilton, Ontario, was that 2 Saturdays ago now? Yeah, 2 Saturdays ago. And the idea in the DNA of this piece was always to have something that was tourable, which is why we have actors like Cora running around throwing on a whole bunch of different hats and voices. 4 characters create the entire world of this play. So I tried to make it small enough that it could tour, but still give the actors enough and put enough energy into it that it would still be a fully fleshed out thing. I want this to be something that can play anywhere and still get the same message across.
And after such a, larger than life character like Orson Welles, do you have other plans for other similar kinds of shows to put on it in the future, to write in the future?
About Orson Welles specifically, you mean? Or
about other people that might be interesting, other theater characters or writers or anyone like that?
Well, I did a play in 2016 about the man with 6 seconds of memory. That was presented as an hour-long drama, but I've written, again, similar story. I've expanded that to a 2-hour piece, which I'd really like to bring to the stage at some point. But yeah, no, I'm always looking to real life for inspiration. I'm a big fan of documentary, and I don't know, life writes itself a lot better, I think, than any of us writers can do. I think all we can do is try to put something in a dramatic context. But I find the closer you stick to real life, the more just the better the work will be. I have a show that just closed in Toronto a little while ago, and again, it was a nonfiction. I was writing about somebody's life, and one of the plot points in the story, after I'd done the script, she loved it, but came to me and said, hey, you didn't put in this part, and this was kind of a big part. And I basically told her, yep, it's too melodramatic, audiences won't buy it. So often I find fact is stranger than fiction, which is why I keep going back to fact.
It's kind of amazing what you can come up with when you're actually looking at someone's real life. And I was interested also in the title and the idea of Mercury, I guess for one thing telling the temperature, but also there's the idea of mercurial being up and down in terms of temperament. Was that part of the reason for the name, or did you have another thought in mind when you called it Mercury Man?
Those are all really good ideas, and they totally work, and I didn't see them before, so thank you for that. I'm going to steal those and use those. But yeah, no, initially it would come from the fact that we're looking at the creation of the Mercury Theater, and the Mercury Theater being this place where Orson Welles could create shows and tell stories just the way he wanted to tell them. No compromises, but also the idea of this kind of phoenix rising kind of thing, Mercury rising, as you will. Orson Welles being on the rise, that meteoric journey. He basically, from a young age, skyrocketed, even from when he was a kid, being told he was a genius, and then just kept proving everybody right until he basically hit that plateau, which, I mean, truth be told, his career didn't really hit the brakes until after Citizen Kane, until Magnificent Ambersons, and then It's All True, and that all fell away. But yeah, that kind of idea of being on the rise and getting basically peaking too early, I guess.
Well, that's a very interesting idea that you would kind of how it comes out in the play from the sound of it. So.
It is a very good idea.
That's right. And so, in terms of the details of the play, the Fringe Festival is starting, I believe, on Wednesday.
The 18th. Yes, tomorrow. Yeah.
Well, that's right. So, coming up quite soon. And which theater is it in?
We're in the Rachel Brown Theater, right in the hub of it all, which is great.
That's right. That's the one on Bannatyne.
Yes, and 211 Bannatyne.
That's right.
And our first show is Friday, the 20th at 12 p.m. So that's when we start. We have a couple days to sort of check out the festival beforehand.
Oh, that's very good. So then you can see what else there is to see.
Oh, yeah, exactly. There's so much to see. I'm excited.
That's right. And I guess most of the shows are a mixture of afternoon and evening shows, but do you have mostly at a particular time?
With the Fringe? No.
No. We're all the way from 12 noon, which is our one on Friday, to 10:30 p.m. the very next day. And I think then it goes around between those two. Yeah, there's a 5 p.m., I think, 8 p.m. We have some good times. I was happy with our times.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. Will you have enough time to relax and rest in between your shows?
Oh, yeah.
Nope.
The director can stress. The actors can go off and gallivant.
Yeah.
As
that's right.
it should be.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you'd like to add about the show or about your experience either writing or acting in the show?
Come see it. I don't know. It's been great. I just think it's a unique show because it's so relatable. And we're just really excited to be experiencing this in Winnipeg. It's such an awesome city, and we're used to Toronto, and Toronto's great too. But we're just excited to bring our little Toronto representation here, but support all the other amazing artists that are here. And I just think people are going to enjoy it. I really do.
And you have something to add as well?
Yeah, Cora, you actually grew up in and around Winnipeg, didn't you?
Yes. Yes, this is a bit of an extra special experience for me. I was born in Grandview, Manitoba, and I grew up in Kenora, Ontario. So that's just a couple hours away, and I spent a lot of time in Winnipeg training for dance and my various things. And so this is just I've never been able to perform in the Winnipeg Fringe. I've experienced it before as an outsider. But I have family and friends that are nearby that are actually getting to see me perform, and that never happens living down in Toronto, and I've been there for a while. So, it's really, really cool for me. I'm really excited that I actually have family that's getting to see stuff, and that I'm sort of back home in a sense.
That should be very nice. Then the people you grew up with can watch you act.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's pretty special.
People cheering for you then.
Yeah, it feels nice. Mm-hmm.
And is there anything else that you'd like to add, or anything else, Terry, that you'd like to add?
No, I'm good.
So
Great job, guys. Great interview.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. That was awesome.
And we'll look forward to seeing the show. So that's Mercury Man at the Rachel Brown Theatre on Bannatyne, starting tomorrow. And no particular time. Well, there is a particular time, but a different time every day. So be sure to look it up.
I just want to add, as you said, no particular time. Do check on the website for the times, because the Fringe has a very strict no latecomer policy. 1 minute past the deadline, you don't get in. So all the show times are listed online. You can go to winnipegfringe.com. Like and follow us at dramatichehat.com. We have an event page there that lists all of the show days. And yeah, do give yourself extra time trying to get to not just our show, but every Fringe show you go to see, because they are very strict on that policy. And at the end of the day, we want you to see all the shows you want to see.
Well, that's right. So I hope people will be sure to check that one out. And thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks. So we're coming to the end of the program now, but I hope you enjoyed listening to what our guests had to say. So that was...
It's very interesting, isn't it? It's a great idea to write about, Orson Welles and bring in fantasy and reality and stuff like that. That's awesome.
That's right. It's quite amazing to have something like that. And thank you very much for coming in, and we'll look forward to the show. So now we're coming to the end of the program, as I mentioned, but Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman is coming up next. So then I hope you'll stay tuned for that.
Okay, guys, thanks for sorry, go on, Sue.
And then other shows after that, This Way Out and Wings coming up after Democracy Now!
Thanks, guys, for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow, okay? Same time.
That's right, 8 o'clock tomorrow morning then. So have a good day.
Yeah, have a good day. Bye.
Bye.